Here to cover all things crime, history, and politics, we are At the Desk. I'm your host, Emily Koza, and in today's episode, we will be talking about whether or not Santa is guilty of a crime, the assassination of a healthcare CEO, debate a couple of fashion styles of the past, and a fun At the Desk recap. Now come take a seat with us at the desk. Welcome back to ATD. First, it's time to send it over to the crime panel to discuss the shocking events of the North Pole. Over to you, Savannah.
Thanks, Emily. On Christmas night of 2023, Santa Claus made his way around the world to deliver presents. On one particular stop to a house in State College, Santa Claus noticed someone had taken his cookies and saw crumbs leading to the front door. The only other creatures stirring in the house were his two elf helpers, Edgar and Earl. After hours of the elves denying their thievery, Santa placed both elves on the naughty list and fired them from the North Pole factory. Today, Santa Claus is represented by his defense team, Eva Hines and Kara Howard, as they try to prove the elves are the true culprits who stole his cookies. Representing the elves is our prosecution, Sophia Tambourine and Megan Wiley, who seek to prove Santa Claus is not as holly jolly as he seems. I'm your host and lovely Judge Savannah Barr. Let's hear it from defense.
Alrighty. She's got it. Yep. Your Honor, members of the jury that are not here. Today, I stand before you to present the defense of the one and only Mr. Claus, who has been accused of wrongful termination of elves Edgar and Earl. He also believes these elves ate his cookies at the Warren family residence in State College, Pennsylvania. This client is not guilty of any crimes. He's just here to spread some Christmas cheer.
Ooh, there you go.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay,
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
proceed.
All righty. Thank you, Your Honor. For centuries, Mr. Claus has delighted children all over the world with gifts, and in return for all of his trouble, he's rewarded with cookies and milk. Over the years, his root has grown, and he's had to take on some extra help, of course. Mr. Claus portrays himself as good old Saint Nick, working a whole day to bring joy to others. But he seemingly never acknowledges the people who actually do the real work.
Oh.
Elves working overtime year-round, slaving over a production line, barely making enough for a comfortable living. With all of this in mind, Mr. Claus still accuses my client of stealing his cookies and wrongfully terminates them with no evidence of thievery due to his placement of them on the naughty list, merely hours after the incident took place. Today, we will see the true colors of Mr. Claus. And it is not the red of his suit, it is the green of his greed. Thank you, Your Honor.
Those are harsh words.
Really rude.
Yep.
Really rude.
So we'd now like to welcome Mr. Edgar Elf to the stand.
First witness, please proceed to the stands.
What's up, everybody?
Proceed, witness.
Well, no, I gotta do the whole be ready to know. Yeah.
Yes, put your hand right here.
On my script?
Yes.
I do.
Okay.
There we go. We're ready.
So our first question for you is, the elf contract states there is no eating or drinking on the job, correct?
You got it.
Do you have any prior infractions? Have you ever gotten in trouble before, broken the contract?
No.
Awesome. Also, thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Elf. I know this has been a tough time, especially after your wrongful termination.
Not wrongful.
Yeah. It's debatable.
Order.
All right. So I would like to show, or I would like to bring in my first picture of evidence.
Yeah. Yep.
an empty plate with crumbs, and a full glass of milk. So let's say the cookies and milk were on the table. How tall are you?
Objection. Relevance.
Proceed.
Nice judging.
Objection overruled.
Excuse me. I am 3'5".
All right. Now, to an average person, this looks like a pretty high table, right? Do you think you'd be able to reach the plate?
No.
Objection. That table is not 3 feet tall. It's
Speculation.
not.
Speculation overruled.
All right. And since you have been working for Mr. Claus for a couple of decades, you started out as a toy producer and then you got promoted to sleigh assistant. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Now, in early November of 2023, you approached Mr. Claus asking for a raise, asking for a promotion for all of the work that you've put in for him over the past 2 decades. But he turned you down. Did that affect how you felt towards him? Did that change your view of good old Saint Nick?
Yes.
It did? And how?
It was a traumatizing impact, and I don't think I'll ever be the same.
Traumatizing how?
Is this one of their questions?
I'm gonna waive my object.
Objection.
I'm gonna exercise the Fifth Amendment.
Terrible.
You're on the stand. All right. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Yes. We're gonna start with
We'd like to bring in our first picture of evidence.
Yep.
Bring this over to Kara.
right here. Yes. Thank you so much. So, we would first like to point out here that these do match the size and shape and stature of elf footprints. Do they not? I feel like this is
Pretty small. I mean, what else?
Pretty,
would
I mean,
make
pretty
those
small. I'm
footprints?
not sure. I mean, definitely not a cat would
Smaller
make
than
them. I mean, I really don't know what else
Smaller
this
than
could
a
be. I mean, there's
children's
physical
shoe.
evidence right here. I mean, this is not Mr. Claus. These are not Mr. Claus's footprints. I mean, I feel like that's pretty easy. Want to present this to the jury for everyone to look at. Very important. Absolutely. Yep. First piece of evidence that we want to show everyone. Absolutely.
Lovely.
Hmm.
I'd also like to bring in this picture of evidence. This one
Yep.
that Megan so lovely showed us earlier.
Mhm.
Empty cookie tray or
Mhm.
plate. And
Yeah.
we have a full glass of milk
Oh,
here.
look at that. Wow.
Cute little, maybe, I don't know, are those reindeer things?
From National Lampoons.
Love it.
Mm.
Okay. So I would like to make a claim.
Yep.
That the elves, as so many of them have stated before, are lactose intolerant.
Absolutely.
And they would never be caught drinking milk.
No.
But they would love to indulge in some cookies.
Mhm.
So, what do you have to say about the fact that the milk glass is fully untouched, full, up to the brim,
Absolutely.
but the cookies are fully missing?
And we all know that Santa Claus loves milk.
He
and
loves milk. I mean,
and cookies. I
he has to
believe
wash down
that.
those cookies somewhere. He gets parched.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yep.
Isn't there lactose in chocolate chip cookies?
But not to the degree that milk gives.
Mhm.
A
It's
few
still
chocolate
dairy.
chips.
It's still dairy.
But the consequences.
Ask any
of-
lactose intolerant person, it's still dairy.
Order. I agree with you, but the
Mhm.
consequences of a few chocolate chips would never equate to
Like
the-
he would know.
Oh, Are you? I'm not lactose intolerant.
Excuse
I'm
me,
not
I
lactose
am.
intolerant.
Thank you very much. And I
Period.
quite enjoy chocolate chip cookies,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
not
same.
milk.
Doesn't-
Objection,
doesn't-
objection,
doesn't-
objection. Order in the court. Please, defendants,
They started it.
continue.
You literally started it, so whatever. But
Duh, and I ended it. What's
right,
your
we
next
got a lot of
question?
sass from the other side.
Mm.
Alrighty. I would also like to know about kind of the environment that these elves are working in.
Working environment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the working environment that, Santa provides for them. And I would like to say that there are lots of complaints
Absolutely.
sent by additional holiday figures.
Yep.
So we want to bring in
There's a reason why only Santa uses elves to help.
only Santa uses elves. So I think that's a
Mhm.
very interesting point to touch on.
Yep.
Because we noticed the Easter Bunny has
Mhm.
sent in a claim that he had to send the elves back because they were so rude to work with and they were never doing their jobs.
broke all the Easter eggs. Yep.
All the Easter eggs were broken. And then Cupid came in here. He tried using the elves for Valentine's Day and they were shooting arrows through houses.
Yep.
So it's very obvious
Terrible
to
amount
me
of property
that
damage.
Santa honestly is giving them the chance they need. I mean, no
Yeah,
other
they don't
holiday-
necessarily deserve, but
Right.
they need, absolutely.
No other holiday figure will
Mhm.
work with them.
Nope.
So I think you should be very grateful for Santa Claus for employing you guys so you can make a living.
Yeah.
Well, the whole reason that Santa has the elves is because that is the environment they work the best in. I mean, could you be a doctor? No, you don't have the correct training. You don't have the
She
correct.
could be a doctor if she wanted to.
Took that a little
Okay.
personally.
And then
so-
why is she here now?
Oh,
Don't you have a witness
Someone has to
call on?
counter your bad arguments. That's why.
alrighty, let's stop that. Okay, we bring to court our next witness, the one and only Mr. Claus.
Mr. Claus.
Proceed, Mr. Claus.
Ho, ho, ho.
Oh my God.
Yep. Please come on up here, Mr. Claus. Thank you so much.
Claus, it's good to see you,
Thanksgiving
Mr. Claus.
hard. Ho, ho, ho.
Thank you so much for being here. We know that you're very busy this time of year. Again, we really appreciate it.
You know it.
Would you,
Yeah.
defense is going to start. Eva's going to take our first set of questions for the witness.
Proceed with
with
I am going to
questioning.
start.
Thank you, Judge.
I am going to start. Okay, so Santa, could you retell us the night of Christmas Eve 2023 to your, best recognition?
It was the night of Christmas Eve, 2023.
Very.
I was giving the kids toys
Mhm.
because they behaved on Christmas.
Mm.
Like, what?
Yep.
And I had my two elves, Ed and Edgar. Right? Earl and Edgar. Sorry, I have so many elves. And I arrived at one child's house.
Mm.
And I delivered, get this, cookies. And then the case happened.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for your recollection of those. Yes, thank you so much for that recollection of those events. Santa, I would like to ask you a question. Your workshop,
Guess I have a fat head too.
your workshop up in the North Pole. That is a place of private employment, is it not? Not affiliated with any type of government agencies,
A
any type
funny
of government
question
at
you
all.
ask. Oh, pardon me. A
Oh,
funny question you ask.
yes, please.
We technically do not fall within the United States jurisdiction.
Really? So that would be grounds for private employment then? Would you say so?
That would be grounds for moving the case out of the United States.
Love it. And what would private
I
employment
come from,
entail?
I'm still answering.
Okay.
Continue,
I come
please.
from the
You
North
don't mean to
Pole.
cut you off.
Yeah.
I come from the North Pole.
Mhm.
Okay.
And in the North Pole,
Yep.
I am the dictator, Santa Claus.
That's an interesting
Dictator.
word.
Which means
Wow.
that work laws do not apply.
Because you're the dictator. Of
I'm
the-
actually-
You're
Private
definitely
employment.
calling yourself there.
Order in the court.
Please proceed with questioning.
Alrighty, I have one more question for you, Santa Claus.
Yeah, go ahead.
How would you say the working environment is working with the elves, specifically Edgar and Earl?
You really hit my Thanksgiving food hard. Can you ask the question again?
Of course,
Yes.
of course, Mr.
Yes,
Claus.
Santa.
How would you say the environment is working with your elves, specifically Edgar and Earl?
In your place of private employment, of course. Yep.
No, Edgar. Don't get me started with Edgar.
Oh,
Earl seemed like a good kid, but
but Edgar.
Edgar was difficult, you know.
Oh, difficult.
Very good
Difficult.
to know.
How? Can you elaborate just a little bit, please?
He liked eating the cookies.
Oh,
But he promised me that he would never eat cookies again and went on a diet and enrolled in the North Pole Planet Fitness.
But do you think maybe he had a cheat day, Santa? Just a little cheat day?
Cheat day.
He couldn't resist those cookies on the plate.
I cannot speak for him.
Okay.
Okay.
I plead the fifth.
Okay.
You can't keep
All right,
hitting
Mr. Claus,
Yep.
thank you so much for being here. Do you have any questions?
We do.
Oh,
We
okay,
do.
okay.
Definitely have questions.
This segment's going to be a little longer than I thought.
So
Wait,
when
I'm going
you
to switch sides.
okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh, so we're switching sides too.
So
no,
when
that's not
you
no.
claimed
Mm-mm.
that the elves ate the cookies,
Mhm.
you
I did not say they ate the cookies.
Let her finish.
don't
Objection.
interrupt. You immediately fired them, correct?
Yes.
I consider that unfair since you didn't even investigate further to determine that they were 100% guilty. What made
Objection.
you so quick?
Speculation. She's not even asking him a real question.
Objection
Observe.
overruled. Please move on to closing statements.
Well, no, she was asking a question.
Let's finish the question.
Well, the judge has spoken.
You may finish your question.
Finish the question.
So why didn't you investigate further if you thought they were guilty? Why didn't you want to determine that 100%?
Because Christmas is coming up, and I have a lot of houses to get to for the kids, you know.
Absolutely, very busy.
He's a very busy man.
I don't have time to deal with.
He's the face of
You
Christmas.
ladies.
Order in the court. Order in the court. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. So it is time as the
This is
judge
ridiculous.
that I make my decision.
Preposterous.
gosh.
Truly preposterous.
I
at our
have
time.
decided to let the viewers decide.
Oh,
God.
Oh,
I have
come
decided to let
on.
the viewers
It's a
decide.
clear decision, guys. It's a clear decision.
Guilty.
Come on now. You ordered up.
Please let us know. Order. Please let us know in the comments below who you think that Santa did or did not eat the cookies.
Plot twist, it wasn't the yellow.
We here at Crime Panel wish you a happy holidays, and we look forward to seeing you in season 3. Back to you, Emily.
Thanks, Savannah. Ho ho, oh no, is Santa guilty? Stay tuned for our politics panel as they discuss the untimely death of the healthcare CEO. We'll be right back at the desk. We are once again back at the desk. It's time to send it over to the politics panel to discuss the murder of a healthcare CEO. Over to you, Yaya.
Thanks, Emily. On Monday, December 9th, police arrested 26-year-old Luigi Mangione as a suspect in the shooting of Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare. A resident in Altoona, Pennsylvania, about 45 minutes outside of State College, spotted him in a McDonald's and alerted the police. On the other side of the world, Syrian rebels overthrew President Bashar Assad after capturing the capital city of Damascus. The alliance is led by a former senior al-Qaeda militant. Jackson, I'm going to start with you. What do you make of the whole Luigi Mangione situation?
Well, it's very interesting. You know, I really didn't think this was going to be as big of a story as it was when the healthcare CEO was first killed. It's really been blown up because it's turned into a discussion about healthcare in America, whether or not the CEO was a good person, whether or not some people were saying whether or not he deserved it. Of course, I'm not encouraging any illegal behavior here, but many people are saying, well, maybe this is going to start something because Luigi is a hero to some, because this guy is a CEO of a healthcare company that has been responsible for the deaths of many people, many bad coverages that have caused people to be killed because of lack of coverage.
Inaction.
Inaction is what I call it.
Yeah, that's the best word for it.
But I think that it's a very kind of hard thing to go at, because you want to talk about legality, but you also talk about morality, and whether or not healthcare in America is proper, and also how to handle that. So that's what I think is the interesting thing here.
Yeah, for sure. Ryan?
I mean, what I think you said was interesting is about people kind of being inspired or kind of looking up to this guy. Like, there's a chance he could turn into a martyr for this type of thing. Pretty unlikely, but it's possible, because if you go online, it seems like he's getting a lot of support. It seems like the reason he was upset was that the United Healthcare AI model, which they use to approve deny claims, has like a 90% error rate, which apparently sparked his descent into wanting to kill a CEO.
Yeah. Other Ryan L?
Yeah, Ryan L. So I am the crime producer, so it's only fitting for me to go into the crime part of it, and even suggest that to get the next semester started, we talk about it on the crime side. But that's a topic for another day. Let's talk about the actual crime itself. So it happened in New York. He went all the way up to Pittsburgh before coming back towards Altoona. Why he did that, nobody really knows yet. They're looking into it. And the reality of it is, now we're talking about something as crazy as extradition. Getting him back into New York, charging him for things like the weapon and the silencer and that hero that called the police at the McDonald's. And not only that, we're taking a look at how law enforcement is working together after the actual crime happened. We're seeing the Pennsylvania State Police cooperate and coordinate, giving their resources to the Altoona Police and the heroic officer 6 months into his job, doing everything properly, hiding his police car as he arrives at the McDonald's to not startle anybody, pardon me, especially Mr. Mangione himself, walking in, confronting Mr. Mangione. Immediately when he's realizing that Mr. Mangione is trying to hide his face and realizing that that might be him, he asked him, "Have you been in New York recently?" Immediately, the way he startled, that starts to make everyone think maybe Mangione is the guy. And from there on out, they arrested him. They have him on the simple charges in Pennsylvania. And they're also going to cooperate with the NYPD, who drove all the way to Altoona. That's a long drive. It's 4.5, 5 hours. They're actually passing my neck of the woods of New Jersey to get there. And they're going to try and bring him back into New York. So a lot's happening here. A lot of people cooperating. Obviously, we've got the governors working together. Governor Kathy Hochul is working very closely with Shapiro and Murphy of New Jersey. Obviously, we got the NYPD and the New York State Police cooperating with federal authorities because it crossed state lines, Pennsylvania State Police and the Altoona Police Department. So there's a lot of pulling levers here, pardon me. And the best thing, as the NYPD captain that was interviewed, I can't remember his name, I'm sorry, on CNN, said, the best thing that can be done now is for all law enforcement bodies just to work together and not try and be the bigger ego and crack the case.
Sean, I'm really excited to hear what you say because you were actually at the press conference yesterday.
I'm
As
really
soon as it
covering
happened,
this.
Sean and a couple of guys were in Altoona in within the hour. So
Yeah, I was covering the whole event down in Altoona yesterday, and the moment NYPD rolled in at about 2:30 yesterday is when we realized, okay, this is serious. They're taking this seriously, and they really do believe they have their guy.
Right.
When they rolled in about 2:30, they rolled in a motorcade, and it was like, okay, now we're talking here. And the deputy commissioner got out, and that was when we realized, okay, this is a thing. Later in the day, he was arraigned at the Blair County Courthouse in Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania, for simple charges in Pennsylvania regarding gun charges and forgery, because he was carrying a fake ID, which he also
New
showed.
Jersey.
A New Jersey fake ID, which he showed to the police officer in the McDonald's, which also led to the keying off that something was out of place here. There was a press conference last night that took place, including Governor Shapiro, members of Altoona Police, PA State Police, New York DAs, Pennsylvania DAs. There was a lot of people last night at that press conference talking about how, look, all law enforcement is cooperating in this instance, especially because this is something that crossed state lines. And as soon as they called NYPD to tell them they think they have the guy, NYPD hopped out here and wanted to talk to them themselves. The DA came out here, everybody was out here, and they all spoke at that press conference. They all said, we are all working together and joining hands. Nobody seemed to have a big ego last night, which I was interestingly kind of surprised at, that nobody was like, we're going to be the bigger guy in this whole deal.
And that's important, I think. I mentioned that because it's important.
Yeah. And when, New York said, okay, we're going to extradite. There was an extradition hearing earlier today at about 1:30, and he actually contested that, his extradition, which could, according to statements made at the press conference last night by both DAs, that could take up to 30 days now to go through all the paperwork that's involved in getting someone extradited who is denying the fact that they can be extradited. So there's going to be a whole process that's going to go on here, which they discussed at the press conference in regards to how it's all going to work and who's going to be the one in charge of it. They're holding him at a state facility right now because obviously state is sort of taking over, as Governor Shapiro was at the press conference last night at the police station, in basically running the show more or less, until they're finally able to send him back to New York's being held in Huntington at a state facility.
And one thing I think we have to mention before we move on too is that the FBI is involved because they are able to, once the border crosses without permission, once he crosses the border, the FBI is able to get involved. They're not looking at federal charges right now. They could be, but they're not right now.
He's pleading not guilty too, apparently.
Yeah, and also the other thing too, speaking on pleading not guilty, is that they're saying now, a lot of experts are saying, the gun that he used to kill him was not the gun that was found in Altoona.
Oh.
That's what they're saying now.
The gun that was found yesterday was a 3D printed gun, according to what was told at the press conference to us
Yes,
last night.
public opinion right now is that this could be the wrong guy. Public opinion, obviously, official opinion is still this is the main suspect, but some people are saying this might not be the same person who killed the CEO.
Yeah, well,
I just think there's so much going against him.
to shift
It's
the
the overall evidence is going against him, yes, but I think that some people are kind of putting out some conspiracy theories that this is not the same person.
And
which
why
there's always going to be that.
But I think the smoking gun that they have here that they might not be able to prove is the smoking gun was how he reacted when they asked if they were in New York. That's what I think just cracks the case open.
Well, I want to shift
So
the
it's such a
attention
random
a little
question.
bit away from the actual guy and to the actual crime. What I think was so interesting about this particular assassination is that whoever the perpetrator was, did not do it in an area that was televised. When we think of famous assassinations, if you think of Shinzo Abe, if you think of JFK, MLK, Malcolm X, every famous person that has been assassinated, or at least most of the people that we think of, it's been in a public space, they've been televised, they've been doing press conferences in their car, rolling past, a lot of pomp and circumstance. And we're talking about in my one of my classes today that a lot of terrorism, assassination attempts, stuff like that, they rely a lot on spectacle. But this guy did it just on the street. He had the silencer. How would he really know that he was going to go to this hotel for this conference unless he had planned like in advance, a long time in advance? He's going to be at this place. I'm going to follow him. So this was less about getting the public's attention, I think. And it feels to me like a personal grudge. like he's kind of on this like vigilante mission almost. And we know the bullets were engraved with the words delay, defend, depose, which people have noted as being associated with like tactics that insurers use to not pay claims. So this is very interesting to me. I feel like it's not motivated by the same things as previous assassination attempts have been. How could I forget Donald Trump, of course?
Of course.
But I think that this is something deeper, and a lot of people are talking about how people are not happy with the state of private healthcare in the United States. Whether or not I think it'll lead to a greater revolution, I'm going to be honest, I don't think it will. I think
Most
in the
likely
US,
not,
Does it ever?
people are very
Most likely
happy
doesn't.
with the status quo, and I think the forces of democracy in the US are strong enough, and the institutions are strong enough that there will not be a lot of rocking the boat. But of course, that is a story that we will have to keep track of and keep an eye on as it develops. So let's move to the Middle East. Lots of turmoil happening. Assad has fled. He landed in Russia a couple days ago.
Yeah, I think Sunday at this point.
Sunday, yeah.
Let's take it back to the Arab Spring, 2011. Popular uprisings all across the Middle East. But in Syria, the democracy didn't take hold, and that's how we get into the whole civil war. So Ryan, P, I want to ask you, what's your first impression of the
Well, I
state of
mean,
Syria
Having
right
two
now?
Ryans over here, isn't it?
I know, right?
What's shocking to me really is that how quickly it fell after this very long civil war. It seemed like in the past 2 weeks, these insurgents, these rebels kind of just took over completely. And, they're still facing some resistance, some fighting up in the north towards Turkey. They're getting invaded by Israel in the south. They're still facing issues. They have this rough interim government they have set up. But in this very long civil war that ranged the entirety of the 2010s, as a result of the gas attacks that Assad used on his own people, it went nowhere until the last 2 weeks. It's just pretty shocking to me.
Yeah, it felt like just boom, they captured
Out of
Aleppo.
nowhere.
Boom, they captured Homs. Boom, they captured Damascus. Like it was just like quick fire.
Very
It's
quick,
crazy.
yeah.
I think it was super fascinating the way this all went down because, like you said, it had been this long-running, percolating stalemate throughout the country. And there's a lot of reporting that a lot of Assad's military had just gotten very corrupt, and the system had sort of fallen apart around them. And as soon as these rebels realized this might be an opportunity, everybody jumped at once. And all these warring factions all of a sudden realized, okay, if we simply consolidate ourselves just for a week, we can overthrow this entire thing, and then we'll pick up the pieces later, which is essentially, I believe, what happened was that when there was movement in the north, all of a sudden, everybody else realized, all right, this is our chance, because the military didn't respond in a quick enough fashion. They thought, all right, well, this is our chance now. And I think they seized on it. And Assad realized, all right, I got nothing left. I got no cards left to play.
Yeah, and these rebels are very, very motivated people. I mean, they've been living under now 50 years of Assad regime, and this is now the fall of it. And they are extremely unhappy with the way things are. Obviously, the gas attacks, the war crimes, it's insane. The hundreds of thousands of deaths.
306,000 non-combatant deaths.
Non-combatant deaths right there. Lots of
what we know.
civilians, women,
Prison
children.
system where they
Yes,
torture and kill
yes, everything
people.
was correct. Torture. I mean, there were so many things going on here that were just not acceptable. So these rebels, can I say they're perfect? No, but I understand their pain, and I understand why they're so driven to take back their country, because the Assad regime is one of the worst in the world right now. And I really want to see how this plays out with Russia, because of the fact that he fled to Russia, and Russia has been an ally of that regime for pretty much the whole time.
I think it's very interesting because we have, like Ryan mentioned, Israel invading as well. So you have a state that is without a government currently. We have a group of rebel insurgents that are presumably going to move to become like a legitimate government. But we have Israel invading, you have refugees coming back from all around the region. I'm interested to see the state building process and the government building process, because that's a lot to handle, especially when they don't have the funds, probably very like, I don't want to say ragtag, but like in that ragtag, but like in a more refined way. Let's pretend I said something more refined. But it's going to be very hard for not only the rebels to cobble together a functioning government, but also for the civilians that are coming back to remake their lives, because their homes have been destroyed. Like they probably haven't been there in years. So going back to that state with a military, almost superpower invading at the same time, that's going to be very difficult. And I don't see, even though Assad has fled, I don't see his regimes, the effects of his regimes abating anytime soon.
Well, I think the beginning of the United States was very ragtag. So then that story right there kind of gives me hope for Syria. I think there's definitely potential for them to rebuild and to undo the damage that's been done in the last 50 years. It's going to be very difficult, obviously.
Will it end up like Iraq is the question.
That's
we're all
the question
asking.
I was
We're
asking.
talking the Middle
concern.
East here. We're talking the leader, the person who is taking over, and also Ahmed al-Sharaa being someone who has for a long time associated with Al-Qaeda in a country that has for a long time been associated with ISIS. So got to be careful.
I
Gotta be
mean,
careful.
absolutely,
I'm
gotta
worried
be
about
careful.
ISIS too a little bit. There's this huge power vacuum. Can they, they're mostly defeated right now, but could they see, or other groups like them see this opportunity of a weak government and take it? If not, these rebels have a chance to set up a more democratic society, or at least that's what they've been communicating. They've been
promised, yeah.
Is, we hope.
They've been communicating. They say that. They say that they're going to lift all the rules on women's clothing and modesty and all sorts of those things. If any of that actually happens, who's to know? But it looks like a brighter future for Syrians just there.
Leadership is going to be interesting. We're looking at a transition of power in the United States, and the United States having a bounty on the head of the individual taking power.
Yeah.
So this is going to be messy. Now, the Biden administration is cooperating with the Trump administration. I hope, and I know that the Biden administration is very invested in this. I hope that the Trump administration takes this seriously, even if that's not a priority. And I really hope that they figure things out in Syria, because that's all we could ever hope for. But we don't know. A lot of times when things happen, we say, let's just look back at history. History repeats itself. With revolutions, history does not ever repeat itself. It alters and changes, and you never know what's coming. You never know what other parts are playing. You never know how long it's going to be, because although this is a revolution, it's building off of a civil war not too long ago that resulted in many thousands of deaths. So, you know what I'm going to say, Yaya? We'll see.
We'll see. I mean, I'm also interested to see, like you said, with leadership, who's going to cooperate with the current rebels right now, because nobody wants to be, at least in the Western world, nobody really wants to be associated with somebody that was part of Al-Qaeda before. So, and they're going to need all the resources that they can get. And if nobody on the outside who has those resources is willing to pour into Syria and help rebuild it, then that's where contention is going to happen. And honestly, I'm not confident that even the countries surrounding Syria in that region will be willing to pour in money and resources to help them.
And some people feel there was a lesser of two evil situation. It was a
Yeah.
fascist regime and then terrorism on two sides. And so people will think that, okay, well, there's no good option then. But I think that they should start exploring and just kind of, talking to each other and figuring out what is the best thing we can do here? What is the most democratic system we can set up? What is the most fair thing we can set up? Because they've been living under like I said, a fascist regime for the last 50 years, if not longer.
It's a totalitarianism.
Yeah, it's been awful. It's been disguised as socialism and disguised as unity, as they say, and it's really not been that. It's been nothing but terror for these people. So I'm hoping and I'm praying for them that they will figure out a way to set up something that is more like the United States or Europe.
Yeah, at the end of the day, what really matters is the people that you're governing. So I really hope, obviously they're probably not going to see this, but I really hope that no matter what, the future leaders of Syria always take into account what the people need and what the people want, because it's going to be a long road to rebuild Syria to what it was.
You know what I've
before the
noticed?
war.
I hope
Go
we're
ahead,
not
Nicholas.
wrapping up now, because I'd just like to point this out, is that democracy seems to just be getting, or at least feeling, more fragile.
Mhm.
It feels very fragile.
I would second
A
that.
lot of
Even here.
backsliding.
A lot of
Even here at
backsliding.
home, on Penn State's campus and across the country, democracy feels fragile. So obviously it's going to feel fragile out there where it doesn't even exist, but some people are hoping for it. How are they going to accomplish that when the person who's taking over may be the lesser of the two evils, but has allegiances to terrorist organizations? It's concerning. It's concerning. And this is also a guy who made a speech, Jelani, who at the same time has lied before and has broke separate ties and have gone for the enemy before. This is a scary, scary, scary time for Syria. And that's why the Biden administration is not putting all its chips in.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think it's definitely a tipping point for democratic systems all around the world. But unfortunately, that is all the time we have for our last politics panel of 2024. Lots of developing stories, both abroad and at home. As we go into the new year, we hope you guys keep an eye on what's going on in the world, as we will definitely have a lot to talk about in 2025. We'll save a seat for you on the politics panel. See you next year. Back to you, Emily.
Thanks, Yaya. Stay tuned for our history panel as they debate fashion. We'll be right back at the desk. We are back at the desk. Now it's time for the history panel as they discuss fashion of the past. Over to you, Shay.
Thanks, Emily. What someone wears can tell you a lot about them. Clothing can distinguish class, symbolize protest, and commemorate religion. But beyond individual expression, it brings communities together and allows them to immortalize their shared cultural identity. And that leads us to today's question: who wore it best? To answer this, we're having the ultimate showdown on which era of time had the best fashion. First, we have Brandon and Yaya representing ancient Greece, and then we have Audrey and James representing America in the 1930s. The rules are simple. We'll have 3 rounds. The first round judges the aesthetic look. The second round judges its impact in the past. The third round judges its legacy in the present. The team who wins more rounds wins it all. With that being said, let's leave behind the Pennsylvania rain and join Yaya and Brandon in ancient Greece. All right, guys. So tell me a little bit about the look to start off with.
So something that a lot of people talk about when they talk about ancient Greece is like togas, toga parties. In fact, togas are Roman. They are not Greek. A lot of people don't know that. What we have are 3 different things. They're called chitons, peploses, and himedions. That's how you pronounce them, actually. I didn't think it was. And basically, they look like this. They look like togas, right? But there was 3 different kinds of them that were all very unique. But the nice thing about them is that they were, how do you say? Men and women kind of both wore them, right? They were very regal looking, but they were mostly just basically squares of fabric and felt. So they would kind of lay over your shoulder. In fact, this morning I watched a YouTube tutorial on how to dress them properly. Never thought I'd be watching one of those in my life, but I kind of wanted to know like how you actually wear them. And when you look at them, they're basically just bed sheets, but they like tie them over and stuff. So if you can take a look here, if you guys want to, take one more of a look,
And we have another one right here. I will fold this over because I don't want to spoil the other part. But you see here, obviously, we didn't have the budget for colored printers, but this is a dark blue, royal blue chiton. And the thing about this look is that it's modest, but it's sleek, it's elegant. And not only does it look good, but it's functional. The form, it fits you, kind of sticks to your curves or lack thereof. We don't judge over here. And it makes you look nice, but it's still flowy. You can still move around. And obviously, back then they didn't have desk jobs. So they were walking about in the agora, going to pick some grapes, get some
drink
cheese.
Some wine. And we haven't even talked about the Byzantine era of ancient Greece yet either, where they would wear thicker, more like layered clothes, but they would be wildly colored and super just beautiful and Mediterranean, the teals, the oranges. In fact, there were so many fine silks coming from all these clothes that it actually made the Greco Empire boom at that point in time, way before the Ottoman Empire even took over. And they were also wearing stuff that we still wear today in terms of like jewelry and whatnot. They had amethyst, pearls, amber, all that stuff. There was a big jewelry. And the way that they would clip these together in order to wear them was they would have these like bobby pins almost, one might call them. They were called fibulas, kind of like, the bone, but they were all decorated and golden and had all these different designs on them, and they were quite beautiful.
All right, well, let's fast forward a little bit and hand the floor over to Audrey and James. Guys, tell me about the 1930s.
Perfect. So the 1930s were really coming out of the 20s, the flapper era, the roaring 20s, the Great Depression hits 1929. So, money's getting a little tight, but that doesn't mean that the elegance and modesty and simplicity doesn't transfer over. Now, something in women's fashion specifically that was very popular and was actually invented that in that time period was the bias cut of a dress. So this was the first time that a dress for women it's form-fitting, but it's still loose. And there's nothing to be had on underneath to shape the body, which is the first time in history that this has been done so. In American Western. I don't know what ancient Greece got going on there, but kind of like what they were saying, these dresses, they did provide that comfortability of being loose, but they were still elegant, and they were modeled after the golden age in Hollywood too, which I think is really important. This decade also, pants finally became fashionable for women, whether in sports. Vogue magazine in 1936 said, for sport and holiday, the pant was a smart choice for women. They weren't quite normalized for everyday wear yet, like grocery store, all that jazz, but, it was a step.
As far as men's fashion went for the 1930s, in America, it was typically a lot of formal wear, dressed up suits, often three pieces. However, what's notable is about the 1930s is that coming out of the turn of the century and into these, the flapper era coming out of it, you see a lot more interesting cuts in terms of what that formal wear looks like. So as far as it goes, this is from a styling magazine for men's fashion that was printed in the 1930s. As you can see, it's characterized by a lot of wide shoulders. It's tailored looks. There's often a lot of hats and accessories. This is really the classic sort of businessman look that you think of that even sort of continues into today. What's notable as well is that you can see here that their pants are rather baggy, and this is something that was rather revolutionary for this decade. And obviously today in men's fashion, baggy pants is almost the norm. If it's not baggy, you don't want it. But this was really some of the first time that you actually saw this, especially into the upper, all the way down into the working class, that baggy pants and wider, more comfortable, not so form-fitting formal wear was taking hold. So yeah.
Well, just based off all the variety there, and as someone who loves wearing baggy pants, I am going to hand the look round to Audrey and James. So congratulations, guys. All right, back to you guys. Brendan, tell me a little bit more about the impact of ancient Greek clothing in the past at its own time.
The impact of ancient Greek, and also I do want to say about the tight-fitting clothing. They used to have girdles back then that would allow it to be more tight-fitting. They were like belts that basically held all the fabric together. It's very interesting. You can read up about all this. It's very nice. But what I would say about the influence on the time was, number one, the economic impact, which is huge to the empire of Greece at the time, the Ottoman Empire, right? So all of these rare silks that were coming, people wanted to wear those clothes. They were very, very important to the Greeks, and they were very, very important to the people in the Mediterranean era. They traded for them, made the economy boom, 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 boom. Not just with the clothes, but also with all the rare pearls, all the rare jewels that were used for jewelry. That was a really big point at the time, but also something that we still see today in terms of impact on the time was all the sculptures. The Venus de Milo, which is the sculpture with the no arms, that is full Greek clothing from that era. And that is stuff that we still see today in some of the great works of art at the time.
Yeah, I also want to talk about just the classical and cultural impact that ancient Greece in general had, to the point where you had the Greek Dark Ages, you had the medieval Dark Ages in Western Europe, and you have the Renaissance come about. And what was the Renaissance focused mainly on? Renaissance being rebirth in French. They wanted to bring back that classical civilization. And who did they look to? Who did the Italians look to? Who did the French look to? They looked to the Greeks. And they even adapted their own pleating patterns that they used for the himation, yes, that the ancient Greeks would wear. And they used those pleating patterns for capes and coats for the nobility, because ancient Greek culture was that staple of the elegant, classy, enlightened state that those who in the Renaissance wanted to get back to. So that was their role model that they used. So even a couple centuries into the future, you still see people going back and be like, how did the Greeks dress?
Especially the ancient Roman Empire, because those togas were inspired by these clothes. So the ancient Roman Empire, where all the emperors would wear that stuff, Gladiator, that was all inspired by what our Greeks used to wear.
All right, well, Audrey and James, tell me about the impact in the 1930s.
Yeah, absolutely. James, do you want to start this time?
Sure. So one thing that I started to mention earlier is that there were a lot of things that were sort of changing as a result of the fashion that was emerging in the 1930s. If you were to compare, 20 years prior, a lot of the suits, they weren't big jackets. It was often just a vest. It was very close to the body, often black, and with accessories like, they had canes, they had collar pieces, elaborate hats, and that sort of thing. But what you see in the 1930s is that they're actually starting to introduce some color into their suits. I showed you before, this is some of the first time that we're seeing that it's not like black suit wear. You're seeing some blues, some browns, some grays. I have another example here. There's even someone wearing green. This is really new, coming around from this decade. Additionally, you're seeing the emergence of neckties that are adding splashes of color and, sort of remaining formal, but also allowing for a sense of expression and a little bit more of a pop of color, As far as the working class and the influence that these sort of archetypes of fashion for the time were, the working class, you could see that they were taking notes from the you know the businessmen basically, right? And so even into the lower class citizens, you're seeing sort of blinks of this, right? They're wearing their jackets. Maybe it's not as high quality, but they are working in these sorts of forms and shapes into their outfits.
Well, and just to touch on women's really quick, I'll make it short. But women's at this time was very important. There was a lot of stuff going on because of the Great Depression. They had to start using man-made and cheaper fabrics, which kind of have persisted throughout time now with fast fashion too, which we can argue that's pretty bad. But, but at the time for the working class, this was a really important thing to still look good. So that was like fiber rayon. And then also, I really want to mention before we continue, I'm so sorry, but this was also the time period that women would use the fabric that livestock feed and flour came in to make clothes for themselves, their children, their families. And it was actually, these companies started recognizing this, and they would make patterns. They would print patterns and bright colors on these clothing. I think this is, on these bags, I think this is such a good example of empathy for women and women's fashion that we don't really see in history a lot. I can't really point to another part in history when empathy for women was displayed. I mean, even now we have sewn pockets. We have what are we going to say? Fashion for women is an accessory.
I really like that argument. It is a very, very, very close call for me, but I think just because of how Brandon Ye talked about how it went beyond ancient Greece and how it transcended into other communities, the Ottoman Empire, I'm going to give this to them. And because that results in a tie, we're going to have a super quick rapid fire tiebreaker round where we're going to talk about the legacy in the present. So Brandon Ye starts off.
All right, boom. We'll make it really quick.
Really quick.
We have basically three cool things. First off, tank tops, everything like that. That comes from this, right? These chitons, these chitons, however you want to pronounce them, they were dually strapped and they were pinned at the top. That hadn't been done before in history. Typically, they're just large overcoats that people would wear. That happened because of the ancient Greeks. And then our next thing.
Birkenstocks. That's it. But the sandalia that the Greeks were wearing, which were originally made of mostly leather or cork or sometimes wood, actually inspired the style for the Birkenstocks. And this is a very popular shoe that everybody wears. Extremely expensive, but what can I say? The Greeks like to live it lavish.
And they used to wear mostly just clogs or like fur shoes back in the day. The strap thing, completely invented by the ancient Greeks. Also, to touch one more time on that the sculptures and stuff like that, the Venus de Milo, there are a lot of clothes today that have pictures of those ancient Greek sculptures on them. In fact, there are some by fashion designers like Jean-Paul Gaultier, one of their most famous lines of the Venus de Milo lines. And that is because of that. And one more thing, I'm sorry, the most popular Greek jewelry maker is Dali Boyakanis, and she designs all of her stuff based on this period of time.
Also frat parties. Audrey and James.
Toga parties.
We'll say it in one sentence, okay? While the Greeks may have liked lavish and been able to afford that, Americans in the 1930s, most Americans in the 1930s could not. The 1930s saw the birth of the rise of ready-to-wear clothing and the production of cheaper and man-made fabrics, which has continued today and was extremely impactful.
Absolutely. And just going back to your whole fast fashion argument and the talking about the sympathy for women, I will be giving this round to you guys, and that makes Audrey and James the winners of the fashion showdown. And that's all the time we have for today, guys. So let's come back to the present and congratulate our winners, Audrey and James. And we hope that you got some inspiration for your next vintage look, and we'll see you next year at the history panel. Back to you, Emily.
Thanks, Shay. Now stay tuned because we are going back in time again to recap 2 semesters of ATD. We'll be right back. We are back at the desk. Let's hand it over to Megan to look back at some iconic at the desk moments and make fun of my friends. Over to you, Megan.
Thanks, Emily. What a year it has been for At the Desk. Obviously, we couldn't have done it without our amazing team in front of and behind the camera. And we can't forget about the viewers at home. But today, we want you to join us as we reminisce on a few of our favorite heartwarming moments that have happened the past 2 seasons. For our first clip, we are joined by Mr. Ryan Lowy. Give it up.
Wow, love it.
Thank you.
Do you want me to wear this?
No, I just put it on your chair for you to sit on. Okay, yeah, no, you could do that too. Okay, do we have the clip? We ready for this clip? Sick.
Oh, Audrey made it. Current Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, looking to be governor, not looking good for him. However, not for the reason that we think, which is him losing in the polls, but because of something that caused him to be down this badly in the polls, some statements that he made on a porn site. So I've already mentioned them in the intro. You can rewind if you want to hear it. In which he stated he's a black Nazi and a perv. I'd rather not say it again, but what he said, Francie, was not good.
This only puts a highlight on, first of all, his running and its effect on the Trump campaign. I read a lot about how these kind of governors, all this kind of stuff, doesn't actually have an impact on the presidential
The
campaign.
main ticket now.
It doesn't.
And this is what's really interesting to me, is that regardless of your opinion of the whole thing, there's only one news source to date that has confirmed this. It's CNN. So Lindsey Graham said on Meet the Press, if CNN made this up or somehow mixed something up, or this was AI generated, like Mark Robinson claimed, he has a humongous defamation lawsuit on his hands that he can make a fortune off of. Well, I guess that defamation lawsuit is not happening.
I mean, I wouldn't know. I'm not on the politics panel. So when it comes to my questions, Ryan, in your political opinion, do you believe events like this affect a politician's reputation?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I'll elaborate. Yeah.
Thanks.
So, I think that when you do something like that, you can't expect to get elected today. You always got to watch who's behind you, what you're saying 24/7, because when you're running for office, if the actual people who are organizing the election don't look into it, someone's going to look into it, and someone's going to use many different social media platforms that don't always fact check and check appropriate things to just basically voice what happened. So Mark Robinson was, for lack of a better term, being an idiot, and he paid the price. Congratulations to Stein for winning the election. And North Carolina still went Trump.
Well, if you were a politician, what do you think?
2,000 views on YouTube. Sorry, it's good stuff. Go ahead.
Oh, wow. Thanks for gloating. Okay, can I finish my question?
Loading. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Cool. If you were a politician, what do you think you would be canceled for?
Well, yes, plead the Fifth Amendment.
Why do you keep doing that?
I think I need to exercise my rights. It's a tough question to ask someone.
Not even just like,
You know what Donald Trump would say? Like, such a nasty question. Cancel after this.
crazy because you're not Donald Trump. So like you're not thinking like you just like go crazy in a Walmart or something.
Well, I thought I was going to get canceled when I said, I don't know if you remember this. This might have been the first or second episode.
Re-enlighten?
They should not have ran a woman against Donald Trump.
I remember that.
It came off nasty, but it was true. You know, Democrats and Republicans, they all looked and they said, yeah, that happened again.
It's a shame. Now for my third and final question. Most viewers know you from our politics panel, but you're actually the crime producer. Is it true that you hate us and that's why you rarely want to appear on our panel?
Exactly. No, I'm kidding. I love you guys. I think you guys do an awesome job.
I know. Well, you were in the trial earlier.
Your eyes are
Am I
Megan's
intimidating
gonna
to you?
overthrow the crime panel.
You're my producer. Why am I scaring you?
I'm just scared anyway. What was I saying? Yeah, I just think you guys are awesome, and I thought give other people a chance. You know, I can review crimes all day long, but not everyone else can. And I felt like you guys were awesome, and I wanted to really hone in on politics because my dream is to be a Spanish political journalist. And I feel like as much as I love crime, but there's other people that can really take advantage of that panel more than me. And I think you guys do an awesome job. I love all you guys. You guys are great. And shout out to you and Sophia for being awesome. Shout out to the original three for also being awesome. And shout out to everyone like Sean who helped out. And shout out to the crime panel. We got a good semester coming up, and I think we have to start.
Okay, cool. You can go. Like you're done. But thank you. That's not your job either. Wow. Okay, so he's like really taking advantage of my space, my studio. I would like to bring on our third person, Mr. Brandon Koch. And he's wearing the hat. Thank you. I don't have to tell you to. Okay. This is my space. So, before we roll the clip, do you have any idea which clip you think it might be?
I have no idea.
No idea?
No.
Okay, roll it. Where's my roll it person?
Falls one of the best or worst days of the entire year. Of course, the good and the bad depends on if you're a songbird of love flying around with your partner or a hopeless romantic flying around in a parasocial relationship with Miles Teller or Dua Lipa. Valentine's Day is, no pun intended, a holiday that has a love-hate relationship with the public, but
Your first question. Would it take for that to actually catch the rose?
One singular.
Mm-hmm. You want me to believe that, or are you just gonna?
everyone in this room knows that. They were all there.
I wasn't, so you're not good at convincing me.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
you also, in your Thanksgiving episode, claimed yourself to the title of At the Desk's Bachelor. But if you were actually in The Bachelorette, what would you do for your first impression? And how many weeks do you think you could last?
I've never seen The Bachelorette.
Hmm.
Can you explain to me what a first impression is, like in that show's context?
What do you think a first impression is, man? You just walk up, talk to the girl for like 2 minutes.
I don't know, but if this was my first impression of you, you'd be making a pretty bad one.
So, but how long do you think you would last in The Bachelorette?
The whole way, I'd win.
Huh?
In fact,
Mhm.
fun fact,
Mhm.
my high school track and field coach was on The Bachelorette.
What is it with everybody I keep bringing onto the show gloating? But
I'm not gloating.
out. How many weeks do you genuinely think?
How long does it go?
I don't know. I've never
How long
watched
does it
The
go?
Bachelorette.
20, 1,000.
Sure.
A
So
lifetime.
you'd marry her.
She'd fall in love with me, yes.
Okay. How would you get her to fall in love with you in her first impression of you? Would you do a little dance, maybe a little jingle, like something fun? Okay. What is that, like your next question?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
ready to move on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's move on in my own show. Great. It's almost the new year, so that means it's time for resolutions. Besides of being single, what else do you want to resolve in 2025?
Don't want to resolve that. I'm content being single.
Seems like it, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But if I was on The Bachelorette, just remember I wouldn't be single at the end of it.
Because those relationships work out like really great, by the way.
Yeah,
Just
I
putting
mean, they
that in there.
typically do. If I had to resolve anything for myself in 2025, it would probably be stop stealing the spotlight, you know? Stop being so great.
Speaking of which, it's my turn to do that. Bye.
Hey, thanks for your time.
Yeah, no, don't mention it. Oh, okay, great. I'm glad that our next contestant probably won't do that. Let's bring on Miss Yaya. Woo! See, I'll clap.
Hi.
Yes, I'll clap for that. Welcome.
Hello.
It is. By the way, I just want to mention to you, it's an honor being able to just
Bye,
sit across from you.
Yo, chill.
No.
Chill.
Yeah, no,
You gotta chill.
absolutely.
You gotta
Yeah, of
chill.
course. Yeah, no. Questions. The clip. Yeah, I totally forgot. Let's roll Yaya's clip.
Did Miles Davis not play the trumpet too? I thought he did.
I don't know.
I can't confirm.
I think that
I don't
sounds
know
right
what the
to
name.
me.
I would
Aretha?
love. This is
On the cover
actually
as well?
Ella Fitzgerald
Ella.
and Louis Armstrong. This is the first time they ever worked together. But
Oh.
I would love to talk about this more some other time. But we're out.
We are? It's showtime? All right. Well, it sounds good. I wish we could stay longer, but
Oh well.
that's all we have for today.
Can I take this for emotional support?
Yeah, that's what he's there for.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I just wanted to bring some comfort to my
Grinchy. You see how they make fun of me? You see how they when I built this brick by brick. Right. Let's go on.
So, television is all about blaming people for things, even though you did them. So, who do you blame for cutting off this? And should they get fired?
Well, that would be nobody but myself, actually, because I am the one that made the mistake. What had happened was I was already very frazzled that episode. Like the day had just been weird. The energy was just weird. And fun fact, I'm actually blind. Like I'm wearing contacts right now. My prescription is like -6 here, -5.75 here. So I can't see. Even apparently I can't even see with my contacts. So
I don't know how I read off the prompter.
I believe Emily was floor directing that day, and she had held up like 3 minutes. In my head, she held up this. If you're not in the television industry, this is wrap it up. So I was like, oh my God, we have to wrap it up. So I'm like looking at Brandon. I'm actually like signaling to Brandon and he's not seeing me. And I'm like, so then I was like, okay, I'll just take matters into my own hands. And then after, as soon as the words come out of my mouth, Emily looks at me. She's like, and I'm like, oh, so that was my fault. Ask anybody who was in the studio after. I was like practically banging my head on the walls. One thing about me, I hate making mistakes.
It's okay.
I don't make them often.
I get it.
So I was like, oh, this like made me want to do not very nice things to myself. So, but we moved past it. Everybody was very nice about it, except for Brandon, because he's obviously the one that probably chose this clip. As much as I love him, sometimes I want to do not nice things to him as well.
I, can't confirm or deny, but since he was taking my spotlight, yeah, he did put that clip in.
Right.
So
Clock it.
yeah, clocked and locked in. So for my other question, I mean, obviously, look at the fit you're doing today. I wrote this question before even seeing her outfit. I believe you were the best dressed producer. Who or what is your fashion inspiration?
That is a really good question. First of all, thank you. I really appreciate that. Actually, that's very nice of you to say. I don't know. I think obviously we want to dress professionally, so I try to do that as much. But I've always really liked dressing kind of tomboyish when I was younger. So I think the person that I'm taking my style from now is really my mother. Like if you meet her, I would love to get her in the studio one time. But she's like the pinnacle of elegance to me. So I think I try to dress more like her. I'm not going to show her this episode because if she hears that I said that, she's going to be way too happy. But I try to think like, what would she wear? And then obviously your Pinterest, your TikTok. If I see something that I like, I'm like, I'm going to try that next time. So yeah.
I love that. That was such a heartwarming, lovely story.
Thank you.
Now for my final question. There was some controversy about your monumental win over Brandon in the Battle of the Gods. Is there something...
Controversy? What that mean?
You know more big words than I do, man. I'm on the crime panel.
What was controversial? Okay, continue your question before I...
Is there something you would like to tell the audience on why your god was truly the best? I mean, obviously, I thought your god was the best, so...
Well, I chose that god because I really like anime, and he is like he was mentioned in Naruto, and it was like a power-up that Sasuke had, and I thought it was so cool. So number one, that. Number two, I think my god won because I presented a really good argument. I said something about bringing out a mistletoe from the sea and squeezing and drawing the water out of it so it becomes fresh again. Nobody else was thinking of that. Yeah. So I think my mind was in overdrive at that point, and mind like this only comes once in a generation. So.
Oh, well, yeah, it has been absolutely amazing having you on. Thank you so much. It is time for our next person, Miss Audrey. Yes. First of all, love the green. You'll be matching my co-host here.
Guess who's jealous of Adele?
Beyonce.
Sorry, I love that clip. That's been playing in my head forever.
Speaking of clips.
Oh God, I didn't even know what you could have pulled.
Let's take a look at yours, though.
To make mistakes. At our age, we're supposed to be
make
making
mistakes in high school, because that's what you're doing. There's already kids who are underage.
May I finish?
Okay, yeah, let's finish off.
Thank you.
Let's hear your horrible take.
So basically,
that is one of the.
This is why Jake isn't on the show anymore.
Now,
That's a lie. We love you.
Now, that was a perfect example of how heated it truly gets, not only in television but on At the Desk.
Yes.
Do you think that was a bit of an overreaction?
Oh my God, absolutely. And we talked about it afterwards, and he apologized. He had no idea where that came from, and I really appreciated it in the moment. I don't know if Ye appreciated it in the moment, as it was directed towards her. I'll let you finish your horrible take later. That is crazy. Do not talk to a woman like that. Period.
I was on trial earlier, and I was shaking in my boots, man. I don't think I can handle something like that. Which I should have told the defense that was the Achilles heel in my argument. Now, you've also been on the show for the past 2 seasons. If you could choose another random topic to be on the show, what would it be?
Oh, I like that the politics panel touched on the CEO assassination.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to go in depth about like what this means and like why people are latching onto it on social media, what our generation thinks of it. And like just the response on that. That's just what I'm kind of been obsessed with lately. I saw like many edits of Luigi Gian, whatever his last name is. I'm like, guys, he did kill someone. But that's okay. Hey, that's okay.
What murder?
What murder? Exactly.
And this is not me condoning anything, by the
No,
way.
we do
I'm
not condone
uneducated
murder
about this
on
topic
At the
completely.
Desk.
That's why I was not on the panel. That's why I made up this whole thing this week for Crime Panel, because I didn't want to deal with any of that.
But then Monopoly money was such a cool touch. And then like getting
He knew what
arrested
he
in
was doing.
Altoona and the Altoona
McDonald's,
whatever.
That's
like the
how you
Pennsylvania
go
Railroad,
out.
which is a power card in Monopoly. Guys, maybe he's smart.
Definitely. I mean, he got away with it for like a few days. That's better than I was expecting, man. I mean, if only it weren't for that one McDonald's employee. I mean, I'm glad they got their bank. Now, what is the most stupid thing you've had to keep a straight face for?
God, everything Jake said on that show was so dumb. Was dumb and was funny. I love him to death. But man, he would make me laugh like no other.
Audrey, thank you so much for joining us. Wow, it has truly been a privilege to interview this extremely talented cast. Thank you so much for joining us on a look back at some of the At the Desk's best moments. Back to you, Emily.
Thanks, Megan. Sadly, that is all the time we have for today. In the meantime, stay updated with ATD on all our socials at PSU at the Desk, and let us know what you want to see us cover next semester. A huge thank you to our director, Leah, and our tech director, Annie, and everyone for tuning in to ATD every week. And we can't wait to see you in the new year with even more thrilling discussions and debates. I'm Emily Koza, and from everyone here at the Desk, happy holidays.
Oh.